Welcome to the scorching arena of valor and the crucible of courage. This is the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Here, in the inferno of life's greatest challenges, heroes are shaped and legends are born. Every episode is a torchlight of wisdom, casting a glow on the paths walked by those who've braved the flames and emerged stronger. In this furnace of fortitude, we'll explore tales of resilience, bravery, and the unyielding human spirit. Each guest brings their own spark of insight, lighting up the darkness and guiding us through the smoke of adversity. With Fireman Rob at the helm, prepared to delve into conversations that smolder with significance and stories that kindle the soul. It's not just a podcast, it's a beacon for all who seek to rise from the ashes and glow with purpose. So stoke the fires of your curiosity and ready your heart for tales of triumph and transformation. The flames are roaring. The stage is ablaze. Welcome to the Forged in the Fires podcast. Let the journey begin.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Here today, we have a wife, a mom, a corporate executive. She's not just a corporate executive. She, at 24, was the COO of a multinational corporation. She is, well, she's amazing. She's unstoppable. And I'm using that as her tagline. So, Victoria Pelletier, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, I had to use the be unstoppable because that is who you are. That is what you are. I want you to talk to me more about your that be unstoppable. Where did that come from, and how do you use it to really motivate those individuals?
Well, I overcame significant adversity and trauma as a child, and I use that to describe it as my why. It's my fuel, yes. In that I determined that I wanted to be better than biology or the circumstance. And I've used that subsequently, both personally and professionally. Every time there's a challenge or an obstacle in my way, I believe you have a choice. So I couple unstoppable with #no excuses. And you have a choice. Yeah, I'll tell you, Rob, that does not go over well with my children. They love it so much. But it's really about choice and how we're going to respond to what comes our way. Doesn't mean we can't have a deep emotion as it occurs, but we have a choice in terms of how we're going to move forward.
And the biggest thing that you have a lot of experience, and it sucks to have that kind of experience, but from childhood that led you to have to be stronger, that led you to have to kind of overcome those tremendous odds. Can you enlighten us more on that experience? Because I think a lot of people will resonate with your story and then where you are now.
Yeah, I was born to a drug addicted teenage mother who was very abusive to me. So I went in and out of the child welfare system a number of times. And then thankfully, Julie, my biological mother, met a couple who she would often have me stay with after an episode. And after a number of these instances, they asked to adopt me. So I'm very fortunate to be adopted out of that situation. But no one on my biological mother's side of the family wanted to bring me in. I think, my grandmother and her sisters. Now the sisters were young, so, but no one. And then my adoptive family, while loving, much lower on the socioeconomic ladder. Dad was a janitor, mom a secretary. There was no food insecurity, but there definitely was zero extras. And so I began working at a very young age and had lots of other things occur from there. But that's where I talk about being better than the biology in terms of Julie and where I came from with her. Also the circumstances that I had with my parents. That, I remember my mom saying to me, I think I was like 11. She's like, Tori, you need to do better than us. And she didn't need to say it because those were the things made me want to do more, do better.
Yeah. And I love the statement that you have on your website, Victoria Pelletier or -Pelletier.com, where you say circumstances of our past only rob us of our future if we let them. Talk to me more about that, because that just gave me chills saying it.
So, I mean, I think for me, there's a little bit DNA and a lot sort of muscle that I've built around that. And the little bit DNA is the fight or flight. I'm a fighter. So there's something in there that
I wouldn't have been able to tell that at all.
No, I know that's shocking. But the other is around the ability to deal with adversity and develop what I'll refer to as a healthy level of resilience. And the big part for me, as you read that from my website, is that it goes back to you have a choice. And so you can choose the lived experiences that you've had as fuel for growth and new opportunity, or you can wallow in it and let it be the excuse why you're not achieving whatever the goals or objectives you've set out for yourself are. And so for me, I've chosen to use the circumstances and experience that have happened to me, both positive and negative, to allow me to move forward in my own version or definition of success.
What was that first step that you had when do you remember back when you were younger, that first step? Because I know when you were 24, you're a COO, but what was that first step where you felt that power of being Victoria, the victorious? And where was that step, and what did that feel like?
I actually think it stemmed probably from school. So it turns out, I talk about DNA. I don't know, in Julie and my biological father's DNA, I got some smarts, I guess, because I did very well in school. And my mom was an incredible advocate for me to make sure I was in gifted programs. I skipped a couple of grades. That was kind of the start of it. The things that I learned to control the things I can control. And my ability to perform was that. And that garnered me a significant amount of attention initially in school. And that then translated into the workplace. So I started working at age 11, and that was just to buy the extra things that my parents couldn't afford for me. When I first started wearing makeup, for example, it was me who bought that. And so I also, my ability to perform well with a very strong work ethic also garnered me lots of attention. So that's where I leaned in pretty heavily into the things that I could control: performance, work ethic, attitude. And so that's what I use to help propel me forward.
And when you talk about figuring out moving forward, a lot of people, when they're in those circumstances, they struggle with the successes because they fear like the big fall back down to where they were. Did you ever have that feeling?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was determined. I mean, again, I didn't live in poverty, but with Julie, I slept on a mattress on the floor, and that was it. And left her home with nothing. Like, I was not even allowed to take my teddy bear. So there's feelings of loss and insecurity around that. And then with my parents, we never went on vacation. I couldn't go on my school field trips, that kind of thing. And so as I worked, I also saved. I bought my first house at 19. And I think, Rob, for me too, it was like,
wow, that's awesome.
Sadly, I gave it to my parents when they, after they suffered a bankruptcy, and they lost it in their second bankruptcy. So, lesson learned. But, for me, I continued to.
Oh, you got there. That was the key, right?
So for me, it was very much around accumulation to ensure that I was in a safe place. Although my mindset shifted from accumulation of wealth, and my definition of success in my 20s, more so from a professional career perspective, was around greater responsibility, bigger titles, and greater compensation. In large part, so I could, afford from my family all the things that I never had, but feel a greater sense of security. And so I've always worked hard. That as I got much later, like into my mid to late 30s, and my ex passed away from a second bout of cancer, like that also shifted the way I looked at what success meant to me, and what brought me joy. And it wasn't money, but that said, it's still always there in the back of my mind, in terms of trying to provide for me. So I'm never, without, given where I came from.
Well, yeah, because I think, do you ever, is it ever enough for you? Because is that something that rides in your mind as, I just need to be more, or I need to be better, or I needed to. Have you gotten to a point where you say, I am doing good. I feel good about myself right now.
On the monetary front, yes. At some point I was like, there is too much. I mean, I remember having a very, very large home at one point when I met my second marriage for me, my husband, and it was a bit shocked by it. I'm like, yeah, it's excessive. I'm like, so I started to scale. It was 7,500 square feet, and it was me and previously, the kids only like half time before my ex passed away. So, I definitely, when I view material possessions, 100%. Now, when it comes to me, I continue to push myself to be better today than I was yesterday. And so the definition is different. It's a little bit more around impact. When I think about like the legacy I want to leave when I die, it's not going to talk about the corporate success I've had. I want it to be about things like I raised two really good human beings, but also the impact I've had on the workplaces I worked in, the communities I've lived in, and the world at large. So for me, there's more and better to do on that front.
And that's kind of that unstoppable also. From a different standpoint is, there's not really a stop point in creating your legacy, is there?
No, absolutely not. There's not. I think there's just so much more. For me, I lean into things like diversity and inclusion, social equity and social justice. So we're far from being done on those fronts. So there will be much, much more.
I love that passion. You can always hear it in the voice. And that's why I love doing podcasts with just audio, because you can hear people's passion in their voice. Talk to me more about your passions right now that you're wanting. You talked about your legacy and you talked about constantly working towards it. What does that look like to you, Victoria? What is that passion driving and creating that fire in you right now?
So I describe myself, Rob, as in my email signature line, my personal one, as a multi-potentialite. And that's has to do with the very diverse interests that I have. So I am a corporate executive. I happen to be in transition, and that was by choice because I view very much my career and what I do every day from a place of joy and challenge. I like really complex, hairy, meaty challenges, but also I'm very, very focused on the right kind of leadership and culture. So that's got me excited. I am a keynote speaker, and I talk on things like adversity and the development of a healthy way of being resilient, on personal brand, on leadership and culture, and the way we need to be, managing and leading our teams. And I used to call it the future of work. The reality is it's here now. The expectation to lead differently is here now. That gets me excited. I, sit on a not-for-profit board that gives adoption grants. And I do that because it's important. It's personal to me.
Yes.
And they're looking to also give grants to those that are in the LGBT community and want to create families. Also personal to me. So I'm passionate about that. But also really, I talk about making workplaces, community, and the world a better place. I approach the way in which I give of my time, whether that's advice, coaching, mentorship, from a place of generosity and not greed. I am not a spiritual person or religious person, but there is a little bit in this world that I believe in kind of karma, and what goes around comes around. So I do it because it feels good. And because again, that's more of the legacy I would want to leave.
And I wanted to highlight your new book that you can pre-order now on Victoria-Pelletier.com. You're going to go to the book section. Influence Unleashed. Oh, I love that. Talk to me more about this book. What was the premise behind this book? Why did you want to write this?
Well, I have one book that was co-authored. I had planned on doing my own. And when I made the decision to leave my last company in this summer, I had time and capacity. And so as I sat down, I'm like, and there's two things I'm asked to speak about. Well, three, but two that I thought were appropriate to write right now. So I actually have another book that'll come out later this year.
Oh, nice.
Personal branding. And the other one's on leadership, whole human leadership. That one will come out in the summer. But I decided to do it because, again, it's something I speak about quite frequently and coach others on. And I attribute a significant amount of my career success to the development of a very strong personal brand. And it being much more, well, one, and two, I'm seeing people getting it, in my opinion, so wrong. I belong to like executive network and people asking for amplification of like posts they do on LinkedIn. I'm like, but do you know why you're asking that? Like, is it connected to your brand? So I decided to write the book. I've been doing it for 20 plus years, even before I had the vernacular of calling it personal brand. I was doing it for both myself and for my teams who are very client focused.
And when you look at personal brand, it's so intertwined with the uniqueness of each individual. And I think there's so many people that look at that and go, wow, I only do this job, or I do X, Y, Z. I don't need to be a personal brand or be any better. What is it that you see in personal branding that every single person should understand?
Well, you said one thing that's absolutely bang on, just around the uniqueness, Rob, of individuals. And what I see is people focus, I believe, beyond the boldness, the courageousness that is involved in developing a brand. I actually talk in the book about 3 acts of engagement: courage, vulnerability, and authenticity. Those are required to develop a brand. But there's 4 foundational elements, and I see people only focus on the first. And it's the easiest. It's the, your subject matter expertise. What do you do? What was your education in? What field are you an expert in? Like, that's fairly fact-based, and people are pretty comfortable with that. But it's much more than. The next is what makes you, storytelling. What are the experiences that you've had? What are your passions, your interests, and your values? And then the third step in that is what makes you different from others. There's lots of corporate executives.
Wait. You're going into this uncomfortable territory. People like to be like everybody else, right?
Yeah, they feel like they need to, but and this is where I was doing, coaching with a woman who wanted to get into doing like career coaching, executive coaching. I'm like, there's 1,001. Everyone and their dog wants to be an executive coach. I'm like, how are you going to differentiate yourself? Well, and in this case, she was an immigrant, to the US, a woman of color, who has some great lived experience. And maybe that can be a niche audience for you to target. Like, why are you not talking about that experience and how you stand in your own? I said, that's a unique differentiator for you. And a target audience you want to connect with potentially. And so you do need to figure out what makes you different from others. And some of those are connected to the prior piece around the values and interests and passions you have as well, because people do business with people they like, trust, and want to do business with. And then the last part I've already touched on is legacy and impact. You need to be thinking with the end game in mind. Now, my 23-year-old son, whom I'm telling to get a LinkedIn profile page, who's like, tells me, like, for old people, I'm like, yeah, but buddy, those are the old people who are actually going to hire you.
I love that.
The ability to articulate it at that age is very different. So again, you're going to pivot and change over time, but it's, what you do, your subject matter expertise, who you are in your storytelling, what makes you different, and legacy, impact, and what you want to be known for.
That's so powerful. I love that. It's so awesome to have this kind of perspective, because I think so many people need to understand personal brand more. Make sure you go to Victoria Pelletier, and that's PELLETIER.com. You can find out more. Victoria, it's so awesome to have your perspective. I always end my podcast the same way with 3 questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Yes.
If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
To stop living in fear.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. All right. Second one here. If you could give somebody, everybody has challenges and struggles that they're going through right now. If you could give 2 pieces of advice, 2 habits that they could incorporate into their daily life to continue to live forward, to continue to move forward, what would those 2 things be?
One is, you're the CEO of your life, your career.
Oh, and I love that.
So you make choices. So that's, no excuses and unstoppable. You define what that looks like. And the second would be to not do things that don't bring you personal or professional joy or value. Say no, delegate, or outsource.
Love it. Love it. All right, this last one's fun. If you could have coffee at a firehouse table, so in other words, any question, you can ask any question, it's going to be answered, with 3 people, they can be deceased or alive, who would those 3 people be?
Oh, wow. That one's hard.
I like that response.
I am a huge Ruth Bader Ginsburg fan.
Oh, there you go.
Love her. So RBG, I dressed up as her for Halloween 2 years ago.
Nice.
Michelle Obama.
There you go.
And Malcolm Gladwell, the author.
Wow, that's a good table right there. Now, would you do your Halloween costume? Would you do that at the table for Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
No, she rocks that lace collar way better than I did.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Victoria. It's been an honor.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. And please share this episode with a friend or family member. To find out more about Fireman Rob, or if you have a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.